Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as always, just a huge thank you to you all. We're getting some great feedback and whatnot. So for those of you who don't know, those of you who are new here, my name is Silhouette. I am a drag artist. I try and post every week with true crime. I just want to sort of do a different spin on my career, alongside everything else that I do. And this channel has helped me out massively with everything that's been going on for the past year. Special thanks to Amanda. When I posted the other day about the passing of my cat, I just want to say a massive thank you. Obviously Floyd made a couple of appearances here and there in the videos, but unfortunately he passed away a little while ago, last week in fact. Now today's case is something a little bit different. I want to cast your mind back to the early 2000s. For those of us who were growing up and went to school in the mid to early 2000s, you might remember the popularity of these viral videos that were going around everywhere, the viral shock videos. One man, one jar, two girls, one cup, three guys, one hammer, things like that. And there was one particular one that became a bit of an urban legend, and that was one man, one horse. And that's the one that I'm going to be focusing on today, because there's so much behind this story that I'm hoping that you guys are not fully aware of. So stay tuned, it is a shocker. If you haven't subscribed yet, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. I do try and upload each week. Somewhere it doesn't work out like that, but I always make sure that I've got something different for you guys. So with that being said and done, we're going to get into the story of the Enumclaw horse case. So just to go back to what we were saying, so I'm just briefly going to talk about what is zoophilia. So zoophilia is basically just the attraction to animals. It's a paraphilia. If you think about the case of Kenneth Erskine, which is my first ever video on here, I spoke about gerontophilia, which is the attraction to elderly people, with zoo obviously reflecting animal, philia meaning friendship, because you have to try and create some sort of friendship with the person that you are abusing, or in this case the animal you're abusing, because animals are incredibly trusting. I mean, obviously I've still got my Ethel, she trusts me implicitly. Dogs, incredibly loyal. Even horses, like, you know, you see the videos of obviously the King's Guards horses that are all over Facebook at the moment, you know, and these silly people are getting too close to them and they're biting them. But when it comes to people in wheelchairs, horses can sense vulnerability. And you notice that they don't go for the people that are in the wheelchairs, they don't go for children per se. They're just going towards these adults that are just getting way too close for their own stupidity. So obviously that's where the term zoophilia comes from. It's incredibly sadistic paraphilia, but they, again, like paedophilia, they try and liken it to a sexual orientation. So like myself, I'm attracted to men. I'm a man who's attracted to men. A lot of you will be women attracted to men, or women attracted to women, or, you know, everything in the ethos. So they believe that it's their fundamental right. They believe that animals can consent. They're not doing anything wrong. But some of the information that I've got for you guys tonight, obviously it won't surprise you that it's just a load of twaddle, a load of absolute bollocks. So in the 70s, many of these statues had made some sexual acts illegal in some US states, not all of them, just some. In Washington, for example, A law that made bestiality actually legal was passed, and this was repealed on July the 1st of 1976. Once July the 1st had passed, it actually made bestiality legal. No one could be charged for it. Didn't make it socially acceptable. People still looked at you like you were weird, but in the eyes of the law, these people were doing nothing wrong. This went on for around the next 20, 30 years. A lot of things came up. I mean, you only have to look at that really infamous Jerry Springer episode where the man was, I don't know if he was done just for show, I'm not 100% sure, I've seen the video, but it was that man that had the horse's tongue in his mouth, and he said that he was in a relationship with the horse. Very, very famous. You guys will know what I'm talking about. And then obviously people like what we're going to be discussing, they come out of the woodwork. They were advocating for zoophile rights. They were popping up on websites all around, chat rooms all around the world were popping up, and they were going on rallies. One of these men that was accessing the chat rooms was called Kenneth Pinion. So he was born on the 22nd of June 1960. He resided in the state of Washington. He had moved there from Seattle. So he had previously been married to a woman. I don't know the woman's name. I know that he had some children with her, and at some point this marriage had broken down. In the late 90s, he actually started working for Boeing, engineering the 747s, and he eventually settled in Oak Harbor in Washington. And it was while in Oak Harbor he planned to start building a house from scratch. And adjacent to the house was a barn where he planned to keep a horse. And this was to be in Gig Harbor in Washington. Now, prior to the incident that we're going to be talking about, he had begun making mortgage payments on this house. And then sometime before the incident, it's not been said what year this actually happened, he had a really serious motorcycle accident. Now, this motorcycle accident, he survived it initially, but it left him not being able to feel pain the way you or I would, which meant he started pushing his body to doing more extreme sexual acts. This included insertion of extremely large dildos, which nowadays is quite common. You only have to open up Pornhub and things like that, and there's these people that are sitting on extremely large sexual objects, men and women. And Kenneth was also obviously interested in this. When his house was raided, these toys were found. He was also started experimenting with anal fisting, and he began looking up about the idea of being a receptive partner to a horse, which kind of makes it clear why he wanted his own horse. So he started looking online, and he comes across the chat room that was run by a particular man that we're going to be getting onto in a bit. And this chat room was nicknamed Zoos. The people called themselves Zoos. Now, the people on the forum knew one another. One of them lived next to a farm in a trailer, and he would frequently trespass onto this farm and abuse the animals that were on the farm. And this particular farm was in Enumclaw, and the group would actually begin to meet up quite frequently. There was quite a substantial amount of them. All of them would go trespassing onto the farm. They would film one another having sex with the horses, with the dogs, various other livestock. they would then post these videos on websites. In 2007, a documentary about this case was actually made by a man named Charles Mudade. This documentary is called Zoo. I have recently just watched this. This is where he discussed that the men would actually just strip down to nakedness. They would apply female horse pheromones to their bodies, bend over railings, and the stallions would mount them. Obviously, the stallions have no inclination. They don't want to obviously mate with humans because we don't smell like a horse. We don't look like a horse. Like these animals are very intelligent. They can tell that. The only way these men could get away with their sick, depraved act was to rub a pheromone on their body. And the online discussions resulted in Kenneth actually visiting the farm. He then slowly gained a little bit of a reputation, and he became particularly fond of a horse named Strut. And on the videos, Strut was nicknamed Big Dick. I don't know if you guys have actually ever seen a horse's penis, especially when it's fully erect. I don't understand why anyone would look at that and think, oh, that's hot. But yeah, I've got no words. But he was particularly fond of this horse. And when the after effects of what we're going to be talking about, when his house was raided, there was actually a cast that was made of Strut's penis that was found in Kenneth's home. So this farm was then owned by an unnamed man, and living next door, adjacent to the farm in a trailer, was a man called James Michael Tate. He was 54 at the time. So, like I said, he lived next door. And on July the 1st, 2005, James, Kenneth, and a third man who wasn't identified at the time, but we're going to be getting back to in a bit, they all broke into the farm again. They began filming themselves. So James, he goes first. He begins rubbing his body with the female horse pheromones. They film James being anally penetrated by Strut. And then, not long afterwards, the three men have sex with each other, one in the stable. It's then decided that it's Kenneth's go. So Kenneth is going to be anally penetrated by Strut. So, follows the same process that James has done, and Strut mounts him. So this was the part I was getting to with the shock video. So this was filmed, and it's about a minute long, and it was actually uploaded. And this resulted in, obviously, I don't know if you guys have actually seen the clip in question. It's called One Guy, One Horse. I've seen it. Obviously, it went wildfire around everywhere. As soon as this story broke out, it just went wildfire. It first became a bit of a urban legend, if I'm honest. So what I mean by an urban legend is it's a story that originated in a certain part of the world, and eventually, by the time it reaches another place, there's been variations made of it. Biggest example of this was obviously this particular case. When it came to my school, when kids were talking about it in my school, I was about 13 when this story came out. The story that was told around my school was that it was happened to a woman. The woman was the person on the receiving end of the horse, and that the horse had perforated her insides, and this caused her to bleed out, and it was all caught on film. And then obviously that turned out to be false. It was proven to be a man. It was in fact a man that this has happened to. Another great example of story like this being an urban legend was Catherine the Great. So she was a Russian empress back in, I think it was the 1700s. The story was that she created a. So she was known for being quite a vivacious woman, and she had a penchant for phallic shaped objects. She had a lot of furniture with penises on them. And it was said that she created a system of weights and pulleys, and this was designed for her to safely have sex with a horse. And it was during that one of these things that the system of weight and pulleys actually collapsed and the horse crushed her to death. Absolutely not true whatsoever. There's never been any proof that this ever happened. It's just something that's been passed down through the ages. So, obviously, sorry to go on a little bit of a tangent there, but we'll just get back to the story. So, the men film themselves having sex with each other, and then it's Kenneth's turn. And as I was saying, like, I don't know if you've seen the video, the horse in question, Strut, the velocity that this horse uses, that's the best way to describe it. And obviously, no matter how much Kenneth said that he couldn't really feel pain, you hear the pain in his voice. And I think it's about 2 or 3 fasts, and then you catch a glimpse of James. He comes into view, he takes the camera away, and then it cuts off there. So this video was uploaded onto line, went all around the world. So at first it was said that Kenneth didn't really feel anything, but inside, obviously, his inside had been ruptured. He was bleeding out internally, and obviously, because of the thrusts and where it was, Strut had perforated his rectum and his, I forgot what the word is. Excuse me. So his anus had been ruptured, and it was slowly leaking into his body, poisoning him. He quite quickly, understandably, he began deteriorating, but he refused medical assistance out of embarrassment. I mean, how you meant to sort of explain that one at the hospital, I do not know. Eventually, he got really, really bad, and the third man, he drives him to Enumclaw Community Hospital. This man's name was Douglas Spink. We're going to get on to Douglas in a bit. So Douglas was 34 years old at the time. So he drives Kenneth to Enumclaw Hospital, and he leaves Kenneth in the emergency room and Scarpa's. By the time the doctors and nurses, they come across Kenneth and realise he's in a really bad way. So they go over to him, and he's died in the waiting room chair. So they beat him down to the mortuary. They start examining him, and quite quickly, they realise what has happened. Obviously, they don't realise that this man has just been having sex with a horse, but they can see that obviously there's quite a lot of damage in his anus area. So according to the medical examiner's office, Kenneth had died of peritonitis. This was from a perforated colon, and his death was then ruled accidental. So Kenneth was positively ID'd through his wallet that was on him and his driver's license, and this was then used to be able to track down any friends and family that he had. This was to obviously inform them of his death. Hospital CCTV was then looked into, and they saw obviously Douglas bringing Kenneth in and leaving. So they had to look into that. Then eventually they were able to track Douglas down. Now at the time, Douglas, he was actually quite a well-known advocate for bestiality, um, and eventually police were led to the Enumclaw farm. This is when they come across James Michael Tate, and eventually they uncovered over 100 of VHS and DVD recordings of the abuse. And they eventually come across the zoophile chat room. So it was determined that Strutt had not sustained any injuries, neither had the other horses. All of them were eventually brought out. Strutt himself, so it was said that the woman that bought Strutt, where the day that she came to pick him up, she noticed some really weird, alarming behaviours. She said that a much smaller horse began coming over, another male horse, shall I say, that wasn't gelded, came over and began licking Strutt's penis. She thought this was really weird. It is really weird amongst two ungelded stallions to be doing this, especially the way that the horse was doing it. She said that it was very much as if the smaller horse was giving Strutt a blowjob. So the decision was made to actually castrate Strutt, so he was gelded eventually. And this really obviously calmed him down. He was no longer having the testosterone flowing through his body. He's gone on to live, obviously, his happy life. Obviously, we can never tell what the last and the first, because unfortunately animals do not have a voice. So James Tate, he was arrested, and the police wanted to charge him with the animal abuse. But because of the bestiality laws that were in place at the time, obviously it being perfectly legal, the horses were not showing any injuries. Strutt himself was not showing any injuries. James could only be charged with trespassing. So the county sheriffs, they weren't expecting any papers to discuss what happened to Kenneth because of the gruesome nature of it. But eventually this rumour just started going around, and the farm became quite the local hotspot. So police had to put out a statement in the papers. The papers were allowed to print the story. Story just blows up worldwide, and to capitalise on that fame, someone releases the footage of one male, one horse. So, as I said, James Tate, he was only charged with criminal trespass. During the investigation of Kenneth's home, when they finally found out where he lived and everything, like I said, they found abnormally large sex toys in his possession. They found the cast of Strutt's penis. Obviously, all of this was seized. They found the proof of him being on this zoophile chat room, and his linked association with both James Michael Tate and Douglas Spink. So the owner of the Enumclaw farm, he was obviously fully unaware of anything that was going on within the confines of his property. The downside to this was that Douglas Spink, because he wasn't visible in the video, he 100% was there. We by all know that Douglas Spink was there. He witnessed this whole thing. Because he wasn't actually shown in the video, he got away with the charges at this particular time. In November of 2005, James enters an Alford plea. So this is a form of a guilty plea where the person maintains 100% innocence in what they're saying, but they know that evidence against them will back up a guilty verdict. So they go guilty for a lesser charge. So Judge David Christie handed down, like I said, because bestiality was perfectly legal in the eyes of the law, the judge, all he gave down, I hope you're ready for this, guys, was a year's suspended sentence, a $300 fine, 8 hours of community service, and barred James from visiting the farm. Like, that's going to stop him. And as you're going to hear in a bit, it doesn't. So after Kenneth's death, Washington State Senator Pam Roach, she crafts a bill to ban bestiality as a Class C felony. This is passed very, very quickly. So now, within the space of a few months, bestiality is now illegal in the state of Washington, and it comes with up to a 5-year prison sentence. Still not long enough in my opinion, but they were making strides. This was eventually passed on February the 11th of 2006. So the director of Zoo, Charles Meade, he wrote that it was almost comically an easy law to pass. And bestiality itself, he had very little political support in Washington, and no groups were actually advocating for it. The only person that advocated for it was Douglas Spink, and we're going to be getting onto that in a little bit, so please just be patient. So the bill prohibited any videotaping, any persons engaged in any sexual acts with an animal that was either dead or alive. And 10 years later, in 2015, Charles said that he wasn't aware of any bestiality arrests in Washington since the Kenneth Pinion incident. So shortly after all of these events, James Tate relocates to Maury County in Tennessee, and this is to live on another farm that was owned by a man named Kenny Thompson. October 13th, 2009, a woman associated with them called Christy Morris, she's arrested and charged with 3 counts of animal abuse. And on the 15th of October, police receive an anonymous email with a picture of a man sexually abusing a Shetland pony. And this is quite clearly from Kenny's farm, and it's labelled as such. Now, both Kenny and James, they are arrested that very same day. James is later charged with 3 counts of animal cruelty and Kenny with 2. Now, according to James's arrest warrant, he had been engaging in sexual acts with another horse over a period of several months, and both he and Kenny pled guilty to this. In January 2010, James was placed on a probation and on a $100,000 bail. Whether or not he carried on reoffending, I do not know. I cannot find anything else to back that up. I don't even know if he went to prison or not. I'm not 100% sure. So I don't know what has actually happened to James Michael Tate in the past 14 years. I'm hoping that he's either died, if I'm honest, or he's gone underground where he belongs. Like, still alive, but obviously not active. But fingers crossed he's dead, basically. So, all that said and done, so they are the 2 main perpetrators of the case. But obviously we're going to be talking about the 3rd perpetrator, the one that at the time wasn't actually named, but he become very well known in the years since. His name was Douglas Brian LeConte Spink. He was born on March 17th, 1971. This was in a place called Harmony in Pennsylvania. Born to a very, very wealthy family. He was privileged right from the start. He was privately educated, and he showed a keen interest in fox hunting and horse jumping. Of course, he did. He's extremely intelligent, man. He later on got diagnosed with Asperger's, or so he says. And also there was another disorder that he was diagnosed with, and this particular disorder, I can't remember what the name of it is. It's actually slipped from memory. But the people that have this disorder, they can't remember people's faces, and it just basically means that they struggle to forge long-term relationships. So Douglas, he later earned a bachelor's degree in anthropology, and also in business admin. In the 2000s, he worked towards a doctorate in philosophy, and also studied theories of consciousness. Sometime in 1994, he marries a woman, I believe her name was Claire, and this is so he's at this particular time he's living with a family friend and her partner, and this woman that he's living with and her partner, they made their living by breeding golden retrievers. They had a real thriving business doing this, and very reputable breeders made their living doing this, very well respected, and Douglas was living with them, helping them out. He grew a particular fondness to one dog, and he eventually meets Claire whilst doing this. Claire's already got 2 children from a previous marriage, and her and Douglas get together, they get engaged, they end up being married. Eventually, he's asked to leave his home because the woman that owns the dogs, she becomes concerned that he's been abusing them, and she gets concerned about a particular row one day that she witnesses between Douglas and Claire. She doesn't feel comfortable having this man in the house, so she asks him to leave. Eventually he leaves. He manages somehow to take one of the dogs with him, and him and Claire start their life together. And eventually she gets wind as well of his bestiality, and obviously she's well within her eyes, she's a well-adjusted human being. She departs from him. She leaves him. She doesn't actually divorce him for quite some time, because at this particular time, James also worked as an analyst with Boston Computing, and he consulted with a company called Fortune 100. He helped several very early internet companies in Oregon, and through the sale of many businesses that he had, he actually ended up as a multi-millionaire at one point. He's living a very lavish lifestyle, had parties that would go on for days and days and days. But eventually he got too big for his boots. He's squandered all this money. He owes people millions, 80,000 to his mother alone. All this money he never paid back. It eventually ends up with him being taken to court, and whilst in court he files for bankruptcy. So he's lost everything at this point. The only thing that he wants from his marriage, so obviously his marriage is broken down, the only thing he wants is his dog. The wife at first, she says no, not having my dog. This sort of culminates a little while, and eventually he threatens her, and he's threatening to do her in, cave her face in, fearing for her life. She eventually relents and hands over the dog to Douglas. The former home that the couple lived in, he completely smashes it up. She said that there were holes in the wall as if someone had picked up a bowling ball and launched it out the wall. And he then goes into hiding. He So obviously in 2002, he's declared bankrupt. He then meets a man called Robert Kaplan. And Robert Kaplan was a very, very well-known drug lord. And Douglas, the former, almost a doctor, has got bachelor degrees, he's got master's degrees, he's a former multi-millionaire. He ends up as a drug runner for Robert. And he's transporting cocaine and marijuana to and from Canada. So he's constantly crossing the Canada border, coming back, going. And at this particular time, he's accosted a female German Shepherd who was constantly with him. So I'm assuming that the dog that he got off his wife, or he had with his wife, I'm assuming that dog has passed away at this point. But he's now got a female German Shepherd. And one day in 2005, so not long after the Kenneth incident, he stopped in his car. It's discovered that he's carrying around £375 worth of cocaine. Pounds as in weight, not as in money. Because don't forget, obviously, this is America, America or Canada. I don't know whereabouts he was actually stopped, but it would be in dollars over there. So I'm talking about £375 in weight of cocaine. I don't know what that equals to in money. Now, during this stop and search, officers first got the hint of his bestiality because he seemed too overly protective of this dog. Don't get me wrong, a lot of us would throw ourselves down for our pets, but they said it was just really weird, his mannerisms and the almost stuff that he was saying about this dog. They also noticed all over the car were these unusual stickers. Now, at the time, because obviously, like I said, bestiality was legal, they didn't pay any mind to it. They didn't really think about it. They were just there because they've got this massive drugs bust. They're going to get a pat on the back. They're going to get bonuses coming out their ears. So they're not worried about a couple of little car stickers. And it's not until a little bit later on that they actually look into the meaning of these stickers. And all these stickers were just basically boasting about how he was a zoophile and how he was advocating for that. So eventually in April 2010, officers in Tennessee, they're contacted by a probation officer. They informed that Douglas had become involved in the criminal proceedings against James Tate. On the 14th of that month, Douglas's property was raided. He had violated the parole of violated the terms of his parole. Also found on the property was a British backpacker. And it transpires that these two were making bestiality content with each other. On the property, James was found in possession of some very large dogs. There wasn't specified what breed they were. There was a couple of horses. There was a particular horse that he was very, very possessive of, called Caprone. Now Caprone was a bit of a sore subject with Douglas. So he had Capone many years before, and Capone was eventually sold to another woman after his bankruptcy, but he just basically always wanted this horse back. And it resulted in a backwards and forwards of Douglas stealing the horse off her property. She's obviously got the paperwork. She's going to claim back what's rightfully hers. This horse is her property. She's taking the horse back. He's going again and stealing the horse, and it went on for quite some time. At this particular time, Capone is found in his possession. There's thousands thousands and thousands of videos and other bits of material that sorry guys about that. Other thousands worth of material that's to do with bestiality. In fact, one of the videos, the British backpacker, he's heard having a conversation with Douglas while he's having receptive anal with one of the dogs. And Douglas can be heard boasting about how big this dog is, how big his penis is. And the man is, you can hear it in his voice, in this clip, that he's in a lot of pain at the moment, and it's like the biggest dog that he's ever had sex with. And other things found on the property, they found a cage of field mice that were covered in lubricant. And then this same lubricant was also found on the genitals of some of the horses. Douglas claimed at this particular point that he had actually been in a 10-year loving affair with Capone. They were soulmates. He likened it to being in a gay relationship. In fact, the woman that he lived with in the 90s with the dog breeding, he claimed that at one point they had an affair, but she was saying that he was definitely gay, and she had handwritten proof from him saying that he was gay. Now, what he meant from that was that this is at the time that he had this horse, and he had fallen in love with this horse. Obviously, he wasn't going to put that in black and white, but that is the be all and end all of it. He believed that this was an actual proper consenting relationship. Him and Capone were a couple. And he actually goes on TV. He goes to a rally. He breaks his probation, goes to a rally in New York, and is seen and heard talking about this 10-year relationship. And he quite clearly says to the crowd, "My lover has 4 hooves and a tail." A little while ago, he was also running a YouTube channel, which has now obviously been deleted. But this was a pro zoophilia YouTube channel. There's some reaction videos floating around of this channel. I watched a couple earlier on while I was just researching and that. And in this YouTube channel as well, he's advocating and talking about this supposed affair with Capone. So eventually these two, the British backpacker and Douglas, they are arrested on the scene. He's again given a real piss poor sentence. So at this point in time, obviously most of America have made bestiality illegal. He was only given a 3-year sentence and 2 years of probation. He's ordered to shut down all of his websites. He was so stupid that he didn't even make himself an alias. He was quite clearly running websites under his own name. There's a lot of black and white evidence out there of these websites with Douglas Spink on them. He's told not to possess or distribute images, which is fucking stupid, because like that's any sort of deterrent. You know, it's been proven time and time again, sex offenders are not going to listen to that. You only have to look at the amount of child abuse images out there, people that get arrested for it, and then lo and behold, a couple of years later, they're doing the same thing all over again because they cannot help themselves. Because they are sick in the head individuals, they cannot stop themselves. He's banned from having any physical contact with any animals again, like that's going to stop him. The hard drives that were seized at a particular time, they were refused to be given back to him because the images that were on there and the videos that were on there, they were deleted by the police. But they knew, because of his high intelligence, you know, the stuff that he was doing in the 90s that made him a multi-millionaire, they knew that he would know how to re-download all of that, get all that stuff back. So they refused and they were destroyed. Won't surprise you, the man that he was arrested alongside, obviously very clear evidence of the animal abuse, but he was also found in possession of, this is the British backpacker, by the way, not Douglas, the backpacker, he was found in possession of child porn images. So not only a sick motherfucker when it comes to animals, also a sick motherfucker when it comes to children. So like basically anything that's walking, breathing, that cannot say yes or no, he's abusing. Like, just that's saying, like, get me off this earth, and that's how I feel reading this story. I couldn't find any information on this man's name other than that little tiny bit and the transcript of the video that we discussed earlier. So it won't surprise you to hear as well, almost immediately, Douglas returns to creating and running his websites. He's bought a dog, he's boarding horses again, and this is at a nearby farm. And he's arrested for violating the terms of his parole. Do you know how long he got for this violation? 9 months. Sentenced to 9 months in 2014, and eventually he's released again. He was later interviewed. He said that a court precedent was set. No longer can zoophobes in this country zoophobes in this country batter and coerce people like me into silence with threats of violence. So after his second release, he relocates to Canada, and he's arrested twice for crossing the border. He's twice purchased a dog. The dog is seized. And at one point, the main suspect, he becomes the main suspect, in his neighbour's dog going missing. And during one of these arrests, he's seen holding a machete to his dog's throat. He's threatening to kill the dog if they don't leave him alone. And an officer goes to grab hold of him, and he bites down into the officer's hand. Douglas, from then on, he remained active in his advocacy for zoophilia. He was staunch in his belief system that animals could give consent. Bearing in mind, he had to rub himself down with female horse pheromones for a male horse to mount him. Bearing in mind the untold damage that has proven, like the vets that seized his animals, they said that the damage inside, because I don't even have to go into it. You guys know. I don't want to go into that. You guys know that the untold damage that a human penis could potentially do to a dog. During his 2010 case, his attorney explained that Douglas believes it's an orientation, and the arguments against it are the same as the ones against homosexuality. Like, the two absolutely do not correlate whatsoever. You will never be welcome in the LGBT community. Same point that I made when I made the videos about Richard Huckle and Peter, I've forgotten his name, the Australian one. I don't even want to say his name because he's disgusting. So, as I stated earlier on, there's obviously the footage of him discussing his 10-year relationship with Capone. And he also said that in these videos he was working on projects to raise legal funds to defend his fellow zoosexuals. And this was to protect him against zoophobic bigots, that he would call us. In another interview, he stated that he, like I said earlier, he was diagnosed at some point with Asperger's. I'm going to be honest, I don't believe him, because he's an absolute Billy Bull. He was, sorry, we'll get into that in a minute. Was an absolute Billy bullshitter, scum of the earth. I don't actually believe that he had Asperger's. But whatever. Move on from that. He said that he was an imperfect vegetarian. So you could say that he was used to putting certain type of animal meat in his mouth. I'll leave it at that. And he was an animal rights activist. Bollocks. Thankfully, on a bit of good news, Douglas died. It was at his mother's house on January 23rd, 2020. This was just before his 50th birthday. So we can all safely state he's burning in the pits of hell where he belongs. Now, just to talk about obviously the worldwide ramifications of bestiality. So it's now illegal in 49 states in the US to practice bestiality. So there's still 3 states left that still practice, still have it perfectly legal. West Virginia being one of them. Wouldn't surprise you, because obviously a lot of them out there fuck their own brothers and sisters, but I said I won't go into that. The UK actually only made it illegal in 2003. Germany, they were 2013. Some countries in Holland in 2015. And to this day, some countries in Holland and some places in Serbia actually operate dog brothels. There was a very famous image that was going around. It's been proven false, by the way, but it's what they actually do. This very particular image, there was a dog that was dressed up in tights and had a pair of high heels on. This was a complete different related thing. This was just an owner being stupid with her dog and posted his picture online, but it was saying that she was running an animal brothel. She wasn't, but there certainly is proof of animal brothels being run in these countries. Another thing that they reportedly do is they break the animal's bones, so they're a bit immobile while they're being abused. That one, I do not know if that's absolutely 100% true or not. This is just something that I recently read, something that's stuck in my mind. It wouldn't surprise me, because these people are just sick motherfuckers, but it really wouldn't surprise me. And what will surprise you is Romania actually only made bestiality illegal 2 years ago. So I'm recording this at the end of September 2024. Romania only made bestiality illegal in 2022. That may surprise you guys. It definitely surprised me when I read that, but it's just different countries, different values. I'm surprised the UK was so behind with it, if I'm honest. But like I said, no matter how many years that it was seen as legal, it was still a very taboo thing, because it's not two consenting adults. An animal cannot say yes, a child cannot say yes. I correlate the two things, because children are innocent, animals are innocent. End of. There was another point I wanted to make. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you guys for listening to me today. It's been quite a long one, almost an hour. Quite proud of that. So yeah, just a huge thank you to you all for everyone who has been watching. If you can give me a like, share this video worldwide. I hope you've earned something interesting in this. Feel free to leave a comment down below if there's anything you feel I've missed out, if you know this case. If you know the cases, that I've spoken about, so whether that be Kenneth, James or Douglas. If you got anything else you feel like you want to add, then just let me know. Just want to say a huge thank you to you all. Please, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscription bell. And I will see you guys very, very soon for the next true crime story with Silhouette. Take care, guys.